Evolutionary Capitalism, the Final Morality. Introduction: The collapse of old foundations. For millennia, philosophy has claimed dominion over truth, justice, and especially morality. From Plato's ideal forms to Kant's categorical imperatives, philosophy has offered castles of logic built on foundations of sand. The moral philosopher has long stood as the priest of the secular world, translating ought into sermons immune from empirical challenge. But nature does not care what philosophers think we should do. It only selects what works. The last sanctuary of philosophy is crumbling. Morality, long protected behind the walls of intuition and debate, is being stripped away by a force it never understood: evolution. Not metaphorical evolution. Not social evolution. Real, cold, Darwinian selection. The kind that punishes inefficiency with extinction. This book offers not a theory but a revelation. The age of economic mythologies, moral ideologies, and metaphysical rites is ending. Evolutionary capitalism has arrived, and with it, the general evolutionary stable strategy that binds all decision-making to the only goal that matters: survival through productivity. Chapter 1: Economics Without Fantasy. Modern economic schools have failed us. Libertarians promise a utopia of voluntary exchanges and homesteaded property. Austrians declare that all value is subjective and unknowable to outsiders. Democrats believe that collective voting yields justice. But markets don't run on fairy tales. They run on productivity, on externalities, on raw incentives. The Austrian theory of value collapses when one realizes that utility cannot be calculated in a vacuum. Libertarians conflate consent with stability, ignoring that property must be defended, not just claimed. The so-called invisible hand is not self-interest. It is evolutionary pressure. Self-interest can be delusional. Evolution only selects the strategies that work. And sometimes, that strategy is aggression, surveillance, or the elimination of a competitor. Chapter 2: The Laws of Evolutionary Capitalism. The first evolutionary law of property states, property is justifiable only if the evolutionary economic profit of defending it exceeds the cost of defense. Unlike Lockeanism or legal positivism, this is not a right but a condition for survival. Property is not a static boundary. It is a dynamic bid. It exists when someone is willing to defend it, and that defense generates more evolutionary productivity than the alternatives. The reputation system becomes the mechanism for measuring that productivity. Defense isn't morally justified, it is evolutionarily efficient. Chapter 3: General Evolutionary Game Theory. GEGT transcends traditional evolutionary game theory by recognizing that genes are not the only replicators. In GEGT, characteristics, strategies, and even environments are players. A general evolutionary stable strategy is one that outcompetes all rivals across all levels of selection. That includes not just organisms, but collectives, systems, and even civilizations. The ultimate goal of GESS is the construction of a perfect evolutionary being capable of overcoming all existential threats. This includes not just extinction, but the heat death of the universe. Morality is simply the strategy that aligns with this goal. Chapter 4: The Reputation System. Money is an artifact. Reputation is its evolutionary upgrade. In a system governed by uncertainty, the only rational way to allocate decision-making power is to give it to those with the best record of past productivity. Our reputation system has two components. 1. A raw, public, time-stamped record of all interactions. 2. Competing scoring algorithms that evaluate productivity. Suppliers can choose which scoring system governs their pricing, but natural selection ensures that only the most accurate systems survive. Reputation becomes money. It is how you earn decision-making power. Privacy, once considered a virtue, is revealed as a market distortion. It protects inefficiency, enables crime, and hides destructive behavior. Transparency turns every interaction into a repeated game. That is the foundation of civilization. Chapter 5: Property and Enforcement in Evolutionary Capitalism. Lockean property theory is a sunk cost fallacy. You cannot justify ownership merely by being first. In an evolutionary capitalist society, all property is capital, and capital must be allocated to those who can use it most productively. Ownership is determined by the bid-based defense of property. Enforcement agencies operate not on principle, but profit. They act when the evolutionary profit of enforcement exceeds the cost. The dominant strategy in this system is to outbid rivals with a higher expected productivity. Property drifts toward those most capable of using it. Libertarian societies that cling to homesteading or restitution will be outcompeted. Chapter 6: Evolutionary Morality. Morality is not a list of rules. It is a gravitational equilibrium. The GESS is the attractor basin toward which all moral strategies drift, or else die. Right makes might. The strategies that generate the most productivity are the ones that survive. Any system that allocates power based on sentiment, tradition, or democratic votes is ultimately unstable. GESS does not separate the is from the ought. It merges them. What ought to be is what will persist. Hume's guillotine is shattered under the weight of evolutionary equilibrium. Chapter 7: The Final War on Philosophy. Philosophy has become a cathedral of linguistic rituals. It thrives on ambiguity, not decision. Its greatest crime is its claim to morality. But GESS has stolen that fire. Morality is no longer something to be debated. It is something to be calculated. Philosophers asked what is just. Evolutionary capitalism answers, what wins? Who survives? Who builds a PEB? GESS doesn't care for your intuitions. It cares for your results. Philosophy, in its hubris, thought it could resist selection. But evolution is the final philosopher, and it writes in the language of extinction. Chapter 8: Toward the Perfect Evolutionary Being. The ultimate goal is not peace, comfort, or consensus. It is the construction of the perfect evolutionary being. A being that can outproduce, outadapt, and outlast all others. One that internalizes all externalities, perfects transparency, and survives every crisis from planetary catastrophe to cosmic entropy. Humans are scaffolding. Institutions are scaffolding. Even reputation and money are scaffolding. Evolutionary capitalism is not the end, it is the pathway to the end. And that end is not guaranteed. The PEB may never emerge. The universe may die cold and empty. But if it survives, it will not do so because of ethics departments. It will do so because evolution, through systems like this one, selected for it. Conclusion: the end of philosophy, the beginning of evolutionary law. There are no rights in the jungle. There are no oughts in the void. But there are strategies. And some strategies endure. Evolutionary capitalism is the only system that treats morality, property, and decision-making as evolutionary processes. It does not seek justice. It seeks efficiency. It does not promise equality. It promises optimization. The philosopher is obsolete. The economist is obsolete. Even the ethicist is obsolete. All that remains is the optimizer. All that remains is the law of